Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 194. Today we've got Mike and Anissa joining me, and we discuss clamp-up times, getting a consistent matte finish, low VOC oil finishes, designing with CAD, and more specifically, Fusion 360. And of course, we swap all-time favorite techniques of all time for this week. But first, I want to let everyone know what's going on over at findwoodworking.com. Unlimited members, you should be pretty stoked right now because we just started publishing the newest video workshop. This one is a mid-century modern writing desk by none other than Tim Russo. A lot of people mentioned Tim Russo's desk that was in our very first designer's notebook in the magazine a while back. And we love the project and everyone else loves the project. So we decided to stick a video camera or two in front of Tim while he builds one. There's a lot of really pro-level techniques going on here. He uses some really cool machinery that you might not have in your shop, but of course, he points you in the direction of techniques and methods to do the same thing with common tools. Right now, up on the website, we have episodes 1, 2, 3A, 3B, and 3C, and I'd say probably over an hour and a half worth of video right now on this one project. All told, it'll be 12 plus episodes long. You'll see everything that goes into making this project, the goods and the bads. We talk about some of it later in this episode. Another thing I want to mention, there's actually going to be a censored section in this episode, but it's only because I say the wrong website for a source of double stick tape. And we're still tracking that down, and I don't want to lead anyone down the wrong paths. It actually cost our own Mike Pekovich $45. So I don't want that to happen to anyone else. So yeah, there's a bleep, but it's just to protect you, the fine listeners of Shop Talk Live. All right, enough of me yabbering. Here's more of me yabbering, but with two people who are much smarter than I am. I wanted to bring up a problem that I'm going through right now. It's called post-project blues.
Yeah.
Does everyone experience this?
No.
Yes.
Maybe. I'm still coming out of the post-wall unit trauma. So I have not looked at my shop since Mike left. Yeah. Yes. You heard the word trauma.
Yeah.
It was traumatic, the whole thing.
And at least it was drawn out.
Yes, over the course of many years.
So, but have you experienced that in the past where it's like you finish something, all of a sudden you're like, oh, what do I do now? I'm lost in my shop.
I like to have more than one project going.
Yeah.
It's sort of the same with reading books. I often have like 2 or 3 books going at the same time because when you finish one and there's not like another in the series to pick up and keep going, I hate that.
Yeah.
So projects are kind of the same way. The only thing that's different, if I'm working on a commission, and it's this really long thing, and by the time I'm done with the commission, I wonder if I even like woodworking anymore. Like maybe I'm just over this. But then like the minute it gets delivered, all of a sudden I have like ideas for 10 different things I want to build. So that's that's the
delivery
opposite.
is the reset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the opposite. But yeah, you do finish something, you get it in the house, and if you don't have anything else going out in the shop, it's like trying to start a new novel. What's worth my investment for the next 3 or 4 or 6 months?
Yeah, I've just gone out and tidied up my shop like
that's good.
5 times in the past 2 days. And it's and I had like a whole plan.
Yeah.
But at some point I need to start cutting some wood again. And yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm happy to get it finished, and then I go, the next step will be the tidy. But then after that, I kind of like to have something small to do in between. Like now I'm going to do some sawhorses.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I'm going to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do not long for the past project.
Oh, I'm not there. I'm glad to get it done, but like the next project is the one where it's like, oh, do I really want to climb another mountain?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't have those blues that you get, I guess.
Okay. Good for you.
I have the opposite now. Although I like multiple projects, I have like way too many layers of things in my shop right now. Got like a big batch of Kumiko blocks in various stages of production, which is always the case. Just finished up a rocking chair class, and all those parts and props are still out. I haven't put those back. I'm prepping for a table class at Mark Adams, so all those props are out. And then even though I had a whole dry fit version of this table that I'm teaching, I decided to like subtly redesign the entire thing, and I'm building on a second table. And then I'm also teaching a Kumiko box class there, so all that stuff is out. My finishing stuff is out. And I'm going to be teaching and then I have a commission, which is sitting on my workbench. That's my kind of back burner when I'm not doing class stuff. I'm working on that, but that's out. And it's the first time where it's really hard to walk in my shop.
You don't have room for that much stuff out.
No.
Man.
Then I have like 5 wall cabinets from various previous classes that are still out and about. So yeah, it's a little too hectic. My floor is super dirty. And then I threw my back out, which I'm fine, but it makes me not want to do anything, like clean my shop. I just need to do what I should be doing. So it's okay. It's all good.
Yeah.
I
feel better now compared to Mike.
Mm-hmm. And I would take any of those wall cabinets or half-finished projects off your hands.
Yeah.
If you need
just
space.
Storage.
Yeah.
Just
okay.
Yeah. Just so that you know. We do that for you, man.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. That's really nice.
All right, let's answer some questions. This first one is from Devin. Over the years of listening to your show, reading Fine Woodworking, and watching instructional videos, I've heard a million different suggestions for how long to let a glue up sit before you take the clamps off, ranging from a little while, whatever that is, to overnight, and everything in between. Do you have any good rules of thumb for drying time? A little while to overnight.
A little while to overnight.
Yeah.
And when do we have to take the next shot? What's the least amount of time this can sit before we can use it for the next shot that we need it?
So, that's like the other day. Katie actually made something in the shop the other day, and we were trying to get through things, and we glued up a little piece, but it's not a structural piece. So then I was willing to give it half an hour.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, all right, half an hour, then we can move on. Depends though. If it's structural, I know the bottle says you can do half an hour.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times if we're doing a lot of glue ups in a class situation, keep the clamps on for 15 minutes, pull them off, set it off the side, let it set. You still don't want to stress things out.
Okay.
But, if like the piece is under tension, like the clamps have to be on there or the parts will spring apart a little bit.
Yeah.
That's overnight. But if the clamps are there just to like hold the parts in position, like for mortise and tenon joints or something where the clamps aren't adding strength to that glue joint because it's just determined by the fit of the mortise to the tenon, all the clamps are doing is just holding them in the proper proximity to each other.
Yeah.
Something like that after 15 or 20 minutes and the glue is set enough for those parts not to shift, the clamps can come off. But like a tabletop glue up where the clamps are putting a lot of pressure on, I'll do a little longer.
What's a little longer?
I don't know, a couple hours.
Okay.
At least a couple hours if am I going to throw it through the planer. Let's say I'm gluing up panels for something.
Mm-hmm.
Couple hours to half a day, sometimes overnight. Sometimes it's overnight just because it's the last thing I do that day. And I come back and get going in the morning.
That's a good rule of thumb, though, that if the clamps are, because many times maybe my joinery is held together by the clamps temporarily until the glue sets up. But I'll I've gone out there and after an hour or whatever and said, okay, I need to move on.
Yeah.
Pull the clamps off and the joint springs. It's like,
Yeah. If you're pinning a joint, like, well, I mean, a drawboard joint doesn't need clamps at all. But if you're doing like table legs to an apron, and while the clamps are on and the glue is wet, you drill it and pin that, you can pull the clamps right off.
Yeah.
That's cool. And the thing, I think more than like the dry times in terms of strength, for me is especially like panel glue ups, is like, where is that glue at in terms of it getting ready to scrape off? So it's not so wet that once you bust through the skin, you're smearing glue over the top, but that it's not so hard that as you're trying to scrape off the glue joint, it's actually pulling the wood fibers up. So it's that kind of perfect rubbery state. So it's more about the status of the glue line in terms of cleaning up that joint as opposed to the strength of the joint. But by the time you're there and you get that kind of rubbery glue joint, that's pretty good. That's pretty strong.
When you nail that rubbery glue joint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the scraper just kind of rolls up. That's nice.
Very satisfying.
It is.
The worst is too hard. Come back, and it's like chipping off and tearing out. Oh.
Well, what about the hot water toothbrush when it's pretty wet? A lot of people do that too.
A lot of people who I cannot possibly begin to argue with technique over.
Do that. Yeah.
Like Tim Russo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can't. I mean, what am I going to say to Tim Russo? And that's what he does. So it works.
Yeah, I tend to not. I've done it. I'm sort of out of the habit of doing it because it's you either get the brush in the water and you get that off of there because you don't want to dilute the glue and just spread it around.
Oh, God, no.
That's horrible. Or you got that little bead in the corner of a mortise and tenon joint and you just let it rubber up, get your chisel, pop done. Also, I tend to pre-finish now a lot. So I have a wash coated shellac at the minimum, which means any glue is just going to pop off afterwards anyway. So that's probably why I don't do that.
Tim Russo has a bunch of different techniques. He's doing that. He's got the little straw thing. He's got little wooden. Didn't he do an article? He did. He did a squeeze out article.
Tim Russo did?
Yeah.
That was Michael Fortune.
There could be more than one.
I think
Probably is more than one.
There can be only one.
Who did the
Michael
cut straw
Fortune
at the
did
angle?
Tim Russo did that. Michael Fortune did the waxy lip.
Michael Fortune watching, and Bob did you put the mortise and tenon halfway in, and you get rid of that rolled up glue around the tenon before you sink it down.
That was a video, yeah. All right, adding all these links.
I mean, you can always defer to the manufacturer's specs or the recommendations from the manufacturer. Well, they don't know, so I agree, they don't know.
Today's podcast is sponsored by.
But I mean, they're erring on the side of you have to take the antibiotics for 53 days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I say they don't know, it's like they don't know what we're trying to do with their product. Same with finishes.
They don't know how bad my joinery is.
It's like I always felt bad. I mean, there's no such thing as a can of finish where if you follow the directions on the can, it's going to give you what you want. Like, for instance, water locks. It's like, no, I wouldn't do that. But they're not selling it to people with the intent of finishing fine furniture. So I just I did an article on, a wiping varnish technique, and I used water locks, and I know it had nothing to do with the directions on the can. And then they emailed me. I thought, uh-oh. And they said, that's really great. Can we post a PDF of your article on our website so people know how to use that for furniture? So it's like, oh. And they wanted to give me a T-shirt, and I had to turn it down.
We are in the middle of releasing Tim Russo building his Danish modern desk video series.
Any episodes out yet?
As of recording, 2 episodes just went up yesterday. But at the end of it, there is the glue up. It's the glue up where he gets through it because he's Tim Russo, and it starts to go squirrely.
Nice.
And it's a little like watching it while editing it and everything. Jeff, you probably went through the same thing. It brought you right back there.
Oh, yeah. When we were shooting, it's like, all right, do we just let the cameras roll and jump in there and help him?
Yeah.
Because it's going to go sideways real fast.
It's like when you're filming someone being attacked by a bear. Do you drop the camera and help, or you just keep filming? Because this is good stuff.
Well, there was two of us, so one of us could have helped, and one of us could have just kept filming the bear.
Yeah,
But-
I'm not going hiking with Mike in Alaska.
But yeah, coming up, it's one thing that he goes through. So there's actually 2 glue up videos because he does it in assemblies, and one of them is very relaxed. And he's methodically cleaning up all the squeeze out and everything, and he uses this little wooden glue chisel, as he calls it, and he's everything's perfect. And then the other one. So he cut his joinery the way he would normally cut his joinery, but normally for this project he would use like a 24-hour set epoxy.
Oh, super slippery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and doesn't swell the joints. Well, for our sake, to try and get us on the road and home to our families.
Which goes back to what I said, as long as you need the least amount of time to get
Yeah.
the next shot.
Yeah.
He used Type on 1.
Ooh.
And it went. And all of a sudden, like, you just see him look over and, like, grab the biggest old clamps, like
Yeah.
the huge bar clamps. And he was like, it's go time.
Yes. Yeah.
That's kind of awesome. It's great that it in the end worked, but that you got that on camera.
Yeah, and he cops to it. And, he's upfront about everything
cool.
as he's going through, so.
And during class glue ups, typically I just keep a wooden block in one hand and a dead blow mallet in the other. And while people are having trouble with their glue ups, I can't get it. Walk over, bam, bam, bam. Because you just got to do it. So,
All right. Question number 2. This one, it was on the forum, and it was left unanswered. But we have a forum. Do people know that now?
Huh.
We've always kind of had a forum, but now we have like a better forum.
are they less obnoxious? Because, man, those forum people were horrible
Back in the day.
back in the day.
There have been it's been very, very civil there.
And there's at least one person who would log in with different usernames and argue with themselves.
You can't prove I did that. It's all about getting those traffic numbers up. All right. So this one's from forum member New and Green. I'd like to apply a water-based top coat to 2 white oak chairs I've sanded. I was interested in using General Finish's water-based top coat, but don't know if I should go with the flat or satin finish. I have read that General Finish's satin is shinier than most. Is that true? I don't want to start mixing finishes. I've already overcomplicated the process. I also know that I don't want a glossy look and not a totally matte look. What should I do? I think this is
I'm a short answer.
okay.
And then I have the real answer,
Ooh.
which is a non-answer. So we'll start with the short one. Get a can of each.
Right?
Yeah,
That's
put it
what I
on,
was
on a
thinking
sample
too.
board. See what you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Small can.
Yeah, little can. See,
I disagree.
I know. Someone's going to say, well, just put the high gloss on and just take it back to your satin finish of steel wool.
Yeah.
I read your answer.
Me too.
I answered him on the phone.
It's a good answer.
It's a good answer.
And in that answer, I said, tune into Shop Talk Live where Mike contradicts me and tells me why I'm wrong.
Well, well, the interesting thing is that's exactly what I do, is what you said. You just use a regular gloss finish and you take it back with steel wool. So I agree with you. On the other hand, I know people who they just do the last coat or two with a satin finish and call
Yeah,
it
I've heard that
good.
before too.
Like Dan Faya did it on that tea table he made. So if Dan does it,
It's got to be good.
good. The reason why is if there's like a lot of nooks and crannies, sometimes it's hard with the steel wool to get everywhere you want to go. That's one thing, because this chair had a lot of things that already pre-assembled. The second thing is it's a water-based finish. Water-based finishes tend to be softer, and they tend not to be able to be rubbed out as effectively. So which leads to the second answer, which is water-based finish. Why are we going with a water-based finish here?
His username, New and Green.
Well, green is just another name for new, like
No, I
green.
think he's leaning that way for low VOC environmental reasons.
Well, then
I
I'm going to
thought it
say
was-
if you're green, a water-based finish, while it might be low VOC, in terms of its manufacture, I think you're still pretty nasty.
You should go Danish soap.
Yeah, do soap. That's
Ooh.
cool. Or you can do a true boiled linseed oil.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, tried and true because it's
Tried and true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally. I mean, you can eat
That's
that.
not boiled.
You can go-
Salad dressing.
You can go shellac,
Yeah.
which is totally green.
Mhm.
I took
I don't
it
know.
as new and green the way you had
Yeah.
mentioned.
I mean, general finishes, I haven't
Redundant.
tried their water-based finishes. As a rule, there's a huge push, especially in commercial finishing with spraying, to get to low VOC finishes. So they've done a lot of research and development on water-based lacquers that you spray. Super, super good stuff. For the market of brush-on stuff, there's just not the demand to make that investment. So my understanding is that they've always lagged behind in terms of the quality of brush-on finishes in terms of water-based. I haven't used General. I've used another brand, which I didn't like. It bubbled. It didn't level. It didn't protect. And it just wasn't, it didn't leave a good color. It wasn't a good tone. I just don't like water-based finishes for those reasons. So
I've used General Finishes. I've used another manufacturer, and I've had decent results with both. I use them in places where I'm not looking for any ambering. I'm not looking for any, like, I don't want the finish to add any character,
Yeah.
you know? I'm trying to think. I've used it over painted finishes before. A lot, actually. Back when I did painted furniture a lot, I would always follow it up with a couple coats of water-based poly.
okay.
Just because I got the color right.
Yeah.
I just want it super protected.
And you don't want it to yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in talking to an unnamed manufacturer one time at a hardware show, and talking about low VOC issues, he had a really great point. He said, listen, the VOCs that you're getting out of a can of oil-based poly is like nothing compared to the environmental impact of driving to the store to buy the can.
Right.
You know? So he said it's not necessarily their urgent priority right now because it is not going to move the needle environmentally. And I don't want to, I am hippie-ish, whatever. I lean towards the hippie realm. But I feel like that is one area that I'll just grab a can of tried and true or oil-based finish and, Minwax polyurethane and be able to sleep at night. I don't know. But I can't tell anyone.
We're going to
What
touch
they
on
believe.
it later. And you did an article on this, but a lot of people use the Osmo Finish, which is an oil wax finish. It's like 0 VOC finish, and it keeps the wood looking super, super close to its original color.
Yeah.
Well, let's just talk on it. Let's just go to it now.
Sure.
Yeah. So there's a question from Paul. I have not heard Rubio Monocoat or Osmo mentioned on the podcast. Have any of you tried Monocoat? Being in the industry professionally myself and seeing what other pros are using, Monocoat and Osmo seem to be the two go-to products that many professionals use as their primary oil finish. Any experiments or recommendations there?
I have seen a lot of people use both. And I did do that article with Marcus Soto. It's a finish line on using the Osmo. They both smell really good.
But how do they taste?
Again, salad dressing. I think the Rubio, the Monocoat comes in a whole bunch of different colors. And in theory, you're supposed to only put one coat on. I've actually seen people build coats of the Monocoat. And it's similar to the Osmo in that it keeps it looking as close to the wood as possible. And I've talked with them about how, and I talked with Marcus Soto about if he has seen stuff that he sent out years ago, and I think he's been using it for a number of years now, and he said it's all held up really well. I've seen nothing but good things with it. I have not used it myself on anything.
And both these and I think this is where the no VOC finishes are a big deal, is if you're like doing all the trim work or like the floor of a room and you're using an oil base, that is smelly forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So here, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, both Monocoat and Osmo were originally intended as trim work, floor finishing kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, once again, the poor furniture people just sort of have to take the stuff designed for other people and use it themselves. So, so I think that's where the VOC thing comes in handy. I've used Osmo just a little bit. In fact, I stole the can of Osmo from Anissa's article.
Wondering where that went.
Yeah.
Me too.
And it's super expensive. Like a quart is like $75 or something.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll
super
need to
expensive.
confirm that.
Is
Wow.
it that? I don't think it's that expensive. I don't
Okay.
remember.
It was like
a while ago.
It made my water locks, which I thought was expensive, like a really good value. But I found that it's an oil and wax, so it's kind of an in the wood finish, and to me it seems to be one of those finishes that really depends on super, super good surface prep.
Mm-hmm.
So I would probably sand, at least a 600, 800, make sure my surface prep is really, really good. It does give it sort of a really nice satin look, and it keeps the wood really bright. I do like that. I did a little test where I had this little sample of white oak, which is notorious, obviously, for turning black when water hits it because of the iron reacts to the tannins in the oak. So I spritzed it very lightly, a little mist of water on this sample covered with Osmo, and I put down like a little bolt on top of it. And the next day you lift it up, and it was like this perfectly deep, rich black silhouette of where the bolt was. Now, I'm not saying there's not a lot of finishes that could really succeed in that specific test. Like I would probably have to brush on literally 3 or 4 coats of something like a Waterlox or a varnish to really build it up enough to keep the water from going that deep. So, but, in terms of being protective, well, it might be protective, but it's not protective in certain instances. So I don't know. But, it's a flooring finish. So I would like to use it more. I haven't used Monocoat. A friend of mine who's an architect and cabinet maker has used it and likes it. I don't know. I don't know what they are.
With finishing, so many people, and I do it, I use the same finish all the time. It's going to take a lot to get me to experiment instead of just the go-to.
Well, because we don't do it enough to be able to afford a mishap. If we were furniture finishers and you do one piece a day and, something happens and you have to sand it down or whatever, it's not the end of the world. We do, 3 pieces a year. And if you screw up the finish, that's 1/3 of your year that you're affecting, So,
which is why I still have not used liquid high glue as much as I want to when it comes down to the glue. Nah, not this time.
I need it to work.
And then by the time I want to, I look at my poor little bottle of old brown glue, and it's like 2 years past its expiration
Really
date.
old brown glue.
So it's like, I don't know how this works. I can't tell if it's good or bad, so I can't try that. I got to get some more, and on and on. I still haven't tried it. Yeah. Do you use high glue? Have you tried that?
Yeah.
I use it in places.
Yeah. And then in a class situation, that stuff has to be clamped 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's like, forget it. We got work to do. We can't use that.
Yeah.
So.
I want to mention Adam Godet's article on doing a high sheen oil-based finish. And he's using tried and true, but the surface prep regimen is the important thing in that article. And I think that would probably apply to, that would be a good example of what you were talking about, where the surface prep is the key for Osmo.
I mean, on a film forming finish, lacquer, varnish, anything like that, the surface of the film of the finish becomes the reflective surface of the finish. That determines the sheen. On something that's really in the wood, like a linseed oil or oil and wax finish that penetrates, there is no film on top of the wood, so the surface of the wood itself dictates the level of sheen. So I have a cool sample board because some people say, oh, I use like a couple coats of linseed oil and it's great. Other people say, I hate linseed oil. It's totally blotchy and it leaves a really horrible finish. So I like a cherry sample where half of it, I sanded up to 1200 grit. The other, I sanded really well with like 150, which a lot of professional finishers say don't sand beyond 150. And then you put oil on both, and the oil on top of like the super highly polished wood, one coat, it looks really, really good because it's the wood, the surface of the wood is super shiny, and where it was scratchy, it's horrible, matte, blotchy, ugly finish. So, yeah.
Yeah. I want to go back. I was recently called out on YouTube for not forcing answers.
Oh.
And not making sure we get people answers to their questions. I just want to go back. So what is to the water-based poly, not if he's wanting to use water-based poly, you're saying just do sample boards. And
number one, who's this YouTube? Why are we kowtowing to the YouTube? Yeah. So if you got sample boards, try it out on a sample board. Yeah. And it's like cost to finish. It's not cheap, but it's a good investment.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. Also, he had mentioned that he did a finish that from a manufacturer that he liked the way it looked, but he was looking for something better. I'm not quite sure what he meant by better.
Yeah, I think that's in his head. To be honest with you, I was gonna reply offline about that.
What was the finish he used that he liked?
I'm not gonna name names on it, but it was a different manufacturer of water-based finish, and he said, I put a coat on and I like the way it looked, but I'm looking for a better product. And without knowing what better means,
yeah,
I don't want to say.
So, I mean, he's already a portion of the way into the testing, and all he's really concerned about now, it seems, is the general matte versus satin. I would say invest in the other two cans, or even some other manufacturer, and do the test samples and let us know. And
blow all your money on finish.
Don't we have something in the works on like a Novio C or
now we do.
We do, yeah.
Thing?
I have a folder on that, and we have to meet on it and figure out where we're going to go with it.
Yeah, and that's going to be like all the monocoat, Osmo,
right.
Tried and True.
And we're looking for a good author for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I didn't want to say that because that's my answer for another one of our questions today.
Now you have to do it too. It sounds like you're the author.
I think I might be, actually. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I'll have to get the folder out.
All right, let's take a quick break. Registration is now open for Fine Woodworking Hands-On San Diego, taking place October 4th through 6th, 2019 at Palomar College in San Marcos. Hands-On is all about making and doing with small classes that encourage one-on-one instruction and interaction. Pick one of these great classes. Turn your bandsaw into a box-making wonder with Michael Cullen, developing your designs with Michael Fortune, hand tool essentials with Chris Gochner, the finer points of bowl making with Mike Mahoney, build a mitered box with a Kumiko top with Mike Pekovich, or make a Japanese toolbox with Vic Teslin. It's sure to be a great time. Space is limited. If you're on the West Coast, this is what you've been waiting for. We'll see you there. All right, question 3. Or should we go to, let's do our all-time favorite technique of all time for this week.
All right. Are
Mike.
we rolling yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've been rolling this whole time. Lots of ammunition.
Favorite technique. I got to throw this in there because it was really cool and it was going to be it, but it's not anymore. Double-sided tape. I know a lot of people use it, but I was using that at BBD's at Connecticut Valley teaching. I stole his roll of double stick tape. I used it everywhere. It's great. Like where I would just tack stuff down normally with a nailer to the Crosscut Sled or something. Nope. Tape.
I love it. What kind does he use?
Well, I was going to say it's a really good stuff. I'd used like the white carpet tape with the,
Yeah.
no, that wasn't good. It was sort of in a normal width roll, maybe an inch wide and it had almost like a white crepe.
Yeah.
That's the stuff. You can tear it by hand.
I am down to my last 2 rolls of that that I got when I was out at the
It
College
normally
of
says
Redwoods.
who manufactures it on the
No,
inside.
it doesn't, does it?
No.
No.
Now-
I'm down to I keep one in the kitchen and one in the shop.
Yeah.
I bought a bunch of them when I was out at the College of Redwoods. And
What do you use double-sided tape in the kitchen for?
everything. Well, I just, not necessarily in the kitchen, but in the house.
Okay.
So I don't have to run out to the shop and get it.
In your
Yeah.
junk drawer.
Under the sink. But
Okay.
yeah.
So, and it's the tape board. Bob doesn't leave it out for students. He has it kind of in his little corner, and I stole it from there, and I was using it all week. And Bob goes, "Where's my double stick tape?" And he said it almost as if like,
It's a secret.
where is it? Like I can't get it anymore if I use that something. I'm sure you can. We need to find out what it is.
Well, I'm going.
Okay, so
Yes, Tim Russo.
Tim Russo, who uses double-sided tape for everything.
Yes.
And this is going to force me. I asked him for the source,
Yeah.
and he gave me a phone number. And that's like telling me it comes from a unicorn because I need to call someone to get it. No,
Yeah.
that's not going to work.
Is it the same stuff we're describing? The white
I
1-inch roll with like the crepey white backing?
Don't think so. It's I have a phone number. I'm going to call them and get a link for the rest of the world, and everybody out there owes me if I do this.
Okay. Well, let's figure it out before this airs so I can
I
buy
know.
some.
Yeah.
I have to do it now.
And I'm going out to Fort Bragg to do 3 shoots, and I will find out the source.
So apparently this place used to only sell it by the case, and CFC bought enough that they would, and then they got them down to like 10 packs, and now they've whittled down to being willing to sell like 1 roll.
Wow.
So I think we owe CFC
Okay.
for that. But we'll yeah. Go out and
All right. So
That's
my real
worse.
favorite technique of all time for the week, I
we're still
stole
on that.
from Tom McLaughlin, who, when he did a really super nice Adirondack chair article for us, the little side leg, like the rear leg arches up and turns into a side rail. So basically cutting a curve in a board, and if your board isn't wide enough for the entire curve, you cut the arch out of the bottom of the curve and then glue it onto the top edge of the board
Oh,
and
that's so
continue the
brilliant.
curve. So that was awesome. I'm working up this entry table for Mark Adams, and it has these arched rails. And when I bought lumber, I didn't buy enough lumber for both rails, but I thought, and I did the thing where I laid out 1 rail, a portion of a rail directly above it, cut out the arch below the bottom rail, glued it up on the top, and had more than enough room for that second rail above it. So thank you, Tom McLaughlin. Super, super trick, and it worked out really well. I have some photos I can give them to you.
Cool.
I posted on Instagram yesterday.
Are you on Instagram?
Not as much as used to be.
Do you want me to go?
I do have a book out. I just didn't know if you knew that.
I'm going to steal one from Steve Latta.
Yeah.
He, it's something super simple. It's the little hinge stop he has for the end of his
Crosscut Sled.
his crosscut sled.
Oh.
It's so smart. It's so simple. It's like a hinge that you can flip up and down when you want it or not. But my favorite part of it is when he attaches it to the crosscut sled.
Yeah.
He does it just up a little bit so that any of the crumbs and stuff don't get stuck there and keep you out.
Yeah.
He has a bunch of little stops that are really cool, but that's my favorite.
Bob did an article on, I think, Steve Latta's stops.
Yeah.
Oh, is that why when I checked our archives, I couldn't find what I was looking for because it wasn't written by Steve, it was written by Bob?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know who's the originator of that flip stop. I mean, Bob has tons of them in his shop, and I know Steve teaches there a lot, and Steve is brilliant. And then, like, Will Neptune is brilliant. So, like, who's the originator
It's
of it?
yeah, I mean, you're going to get some pretty good ideas out
Yeah.
of the 3 of them that they're going to share, so.
Yeah, a lot of things I do, it's like a 3 or 4 level credit that I have to give.
Yeah.
Like the bearing trick for doing the waist between the dovetails came from Bob, which came from Will. So I have to credit both of those people.
I feel like most of them lead back to Will eventually.
Yeah. But then the Steve Latta trick, which is the angled dovetail blade with the table saw blade with all the teeth ground in the same angle.
That's Steve Latta?
That's a Steve Latta trick, which is where I learned it. And then Steve was mortified when I told him I gave him credit every time he used it. He goes, no, I think I got that from a Mark Dajinski article in But because I didn't learn it from Mark, I learned it from Steve. That's a one layer credit right there.
Huh.
So that's good. Flip stop.
Yeah.
Do you have some? Does it have the L at the top so you can slide it along the crosscut sled?
Do you have the screw?
I don't have it at all yet.
Oh.
I just saw him do it at live.
Oh, yeah.
And next time I use my crosscut sled, it's going to be on there.
Yeah. So I keep saying
Not
too.
the sled, though.
That is the Van Dyke adjustment screw to the stop.
Yeah.
So you're not unclamping, tapping, clamping. It's just screw, zip, zip. And then Bob has a cool little mini right angle ratchet drive with the screw bit in it for adjusting the end stop screw.
Yeah.
He's got it figured out.
Yeah.
And he gave me one, and I'm like, it's my prized possession.
You don't have to buy stuff anymore, do you? Bob just gives it to you. Or you steal it from Bob is probably more likely. Anytime you say, Bob gave me one, I'm just going to assume you stole it.
What are you trying to say? That Mike steals stuff from Bob?
He just admitted to it. We have it on tape.
Tape?
Tape. All right. My all-time favorite technique of all time for this week is stolen from Chris Gochner.
Yeah.
Another good source of things to steal. And
somebody should make a magazine and put all this stuff in it.
Whoa. So I have a bunch of files that I have for like metal work and like chainsaw sharpening and, whatever. And I've been using wood that is either seemingly, wood in air quotes kind of, that's not, it's the stuff Richlite. It's basically countertop. It's compressed paper and phenolic resin. And it just doesn't plane. It doesn't do anything you want to do. And I need to shape some parts. I was like, how am I gonna do this? Because the parts are so small, I can't really like take it to the table. So I can't take it to this. I can't do that. And files. Files and wood get along way better than I ever would have thought. I always thought of using files as just a metal working thing. But files work really well on wood.
Files. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other day I see Chris Gochner had the article, like, using files for
like sizing
dovetails
tenons
and-
or
yeah,
tenon
exactly.
wall. Yes.
And it's like, oh, okay, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Wanted to, but yeah. So if you have files lying around and you need to shape some wood, go for it.
That and the file substitute is a piece of MDF with sandpaper glued to it, which is a Michael Fortune trick. Which you think, sandpaper and MDF? That's like, all right, Michael, you're not on top of your game if that's what you're throwing out there. And then you do it, and they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Super cool.
That's one of those things that I always say, again, with stop blocks too. Like, I'm going to go out to, maybe that's what I should do in my post-project blues. I should make stop blocks.
Yeah.
And I should make a bunch of file paper, sandpaper sticks.
You got a good crosscut sled? That's a good thing to make in your downtime.
You gave me a crosscut sled with the table saw, but for some reason, no, I can't use your, like, is that weird that?
No, it's not weird.
Okay. Is that weird to you? It's a very personal thing. Like, I'm sure it's accurate. I'm sure it's great, but no, that's Mike's. That's not mine.
Here's my new thing.
That's like saying, like, here's a dresser. Oh, it has Mike's underwear in it. I can't use it. I'm throwing that underwear out. I don't care. Don't care how much I need underwear. Too far.
Not quite the same thing. Not.
All right, crosscut sleds. This is super cool because crosscut sled, make a crosscut sled. In my mind, that's like a big project. That's like all day and it's stressful because it's going to be square when you're done or not. And then you have to like live with it for a while. And then, God forbid, you have to do like a 90 or 45 degree cut And am I really going to make that cut into my Crosscut Sled or a dado blade? Oh, am I really going to like... So when I'm teaching and I got to go out on the road and you don't know, even table saws by the same brand, the miter slot spacing is never exactly the same. So I needed to go out. I was doing a demo and I wanted to do a bunch of things, whether it was dados or dovetails. And I needed like more than one Crosscut Sled. I just got some, like a piece of MDF or plywood, which was maybe 12 inches wide by 24 inches long, small, not even that big. And then I just screwed a fence on front and back. And so I had all these U's. I made like 3 or 4 of these little U things, and I brought a pair of miter gauges with me to teach. And you just, instead of putting the runners on the bottom of the Crosscut Sled, you just screw them to a pair of miter gauges. And you can sort of square those up by loosening up the heads and checking it. And it's like they're almost disposable Crosscut Sleds.
But you have to have 2.
Oh, I make a
that,
bunch.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, 2 miter. So get yourself an extra miter gauge. And if you buy yourself multiple table saws and you just have a bunch of ones kicking around, you can do that. I think it's worth the investment, extra miter gauge. And now it's just like, there's my dovetail sled. There's my one I use for my 1/4 inch finger joint blade thing. There's one that's for mitering. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I just now have a whole quiver of mini Crosscut Sleds for lots of different things that you just attach with miter gauges. That's an article.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Can I just put it in Mag Tracker?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Okay.
Done.
And this is how the magazine gets made.
See, one reason why I haven't made a miter sled or a Crosscut Sled yet is I have a nice miter gauge that I attached a piece of that aluminum 80/20 extrusion, like a nice big piece of extrusion to, and I have a long miter gauge because this 80/20 aluminum extrusion has, for all intents and purposes, T-tracks on the front. I just put MDF wasteboards on the front, really.
Right.
And I use that for everything.
That's cool.
And I always have the spot where the blade is hitting, the zero clearance spot. And if all of a sudden I have to tilt the blade or I tilt the miter gauge or whatever, and that spot gets ruined, I just loosen up a couple screws and slide that wasteboard over, and I'm good to go. So, and I've made sleds that attach to the miter gauge for like a little finger joint sled for making kerfing for the acoustics. And I just attach everything to that miter gauge. So I haven't had a need for the Crosscut Sled yet.
That's cool.
But, yeah. I still feel guilty. All right. Anissa just... I'm not going to... Whatever. Anissa just fiddled... There's no good way of saying this.
Not now, there isn't.
Ben's
Watch the
water
video.
bottle has a magnetic cap that he sticks on the side.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anissa went over and...
Oh, that is so cool. It just distracted me.
Yeah.
That's genius.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
It is smart.
Yeah.
Let's answer one more
Sorry.
question. Yeah. All right. Let's answer one more question. And this one's kind of a two-parter. Jeff, do we have a second card ready? Yeah. All right. Okay. He says with enthusiasm.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 4 is from Brendan.
Even though his attention span's going to run out before the cards run out.
I can't draw by hand at all, not even a little. My 3rd grade drawings look every bit as good as my current attempts. On Shop Talk Live 180, you talked about design for 30 minutes without mentioning CAD as a design medium.
For good reason.
I know. I looked this up too. I know it's a scary topic, but as a resolution, at least one of you should try to design a furniture piece down to the joinery on your computer. The learning
Can we
curve.
stop right there?
Well, I have. I do it all the time.
And I'm not going to do it.
Well, one of us has.
Okay.
And I'm developing an article on this.
It's starting to sound like my dog ate my homework.
No, it's true. At some point, there's going to be a designer's notebook that talks about the different ways of designing furniture.
Yeah.
And, we're going to kind of compare them. I'm not sure if it's going to be one author or multiple authors probably, but we're going to talk about CAD, and at least right now the plan is to talk about CAD and Fusion 360 and SketchUp, Illustrator, and Procreate. There's one. And then there's somebody else.
Oh, yeah, that's what
Peter
Galbraith
Galbraith
used. Oh,
drawing.
yeah.
And then there's somebody else I know who kind of uses Photoshop and a couple different things and kind of mixes pieces
That's
of
what Mike
furniture.
does. Mike photoshops Kumiko and stuff at his desk.
Shut up, man.
Well, Mike has a really cool way of using Photoshop, and however he does whatever he does on the computer there, he mixes different elements from different pieces of furniture he's made or he likes, and he can change them. And he's not I don't think it's in any one of these programs. You're doing something like you're combining.
Especially when I
different
told Bob
magical.
I'll teach arts and crafts side chair class in the fall, and the chair I want to make doesn't exist, but he needs a photo of it. So, yes. I'll take some of this, I'll take some of this, take some of this. Here's a chair, Bob.
Yeah, see, I would do that, but I would photocopy everything and cut it out and then tape it all together.
And that's cool. So I'm sorry, this is actually a really good question. Go ahead, finish your question, Ben.
I think that was it. That was it. The learning curve can be steep, but I find that designing on a computer allows me to virtually build the piece without creating any sawdust. And I agree, and that's what I do too. I do everything in SketchUp. Most of the time, I'll even do joinery, just to see. Oh wait, I need to haunch that tenon there, and oh, I need to do that, and because I don't have the backlog of experience of building, dozens of pieces in a style, and to know where I need to do this or where I need to do that. So that's why I do joinery.
So my big question is, and it's a really valid viewpoint because again, a lot of people use these is. The computer programs I use in designing furniture, I use them because I learned them for my day job and I know how to use them and it just transfers over. So I'm just wondering if it's the same with CAD. If you're an engineer and you use CAD or whatever, I think that's super smart and a really natural thing to do is to bring that knowledge over into furniture making. But are you going to learn CAD from scratch if you're a furniture maker? I think if it's a business thing, like
do you consider SketchUp CAD?
No,
because CAD is to me computer aided drawing.
No, CAD to me is like you do this in the computer and you push a button and a machine poops it out.
Okay, so all right, when I think CAD, I think SketchUp is a CAD program. Now there is programs AutoCAD and whatever, so that's fine, but CAD is, for me, a general term describing any computer-aided drawing. Huh. So SketchUp is one that is capable of doing all of the things that Brendan's talking about and is pretty simple. It really is. And I can draw up, like when we were doing the Chris Gochner thing, while he was hand-planing stuff, I was duplicating his piece in SketchUp. Easily while we were there. Dave Richards and Tim Killen on the website have Design Click Build. And I mean, they go into some deep stuff with SketchUp, but they have a lot of articles on there that are, getting started with SketchUp. And Dave has a DVD, I believe. So if anyone
ebooks, right?
Yeah. So if anyone's out there like looking to get started in it and you don't want to dive into like full on CAD, SketchUp is a great way of going. Now, talking about CAD, and you had mentioned before Fusion 360, we had another question from Paul who asked the Rubio Monaco thing. And he just mentions that none of us have ever mentioned Fusion 360 on the podcast. Years ago, I landed a very complicated project with some CNC work involved and came to the realization that I needed something more sophisticated than SketchUp. Fusion 360 is now a huge part of my business, and I can't imagine ever going back to SketchUp. Having parametric capabilities now seems absolutely necessary.
See, the parametric capabilities, that is important.
For a business?
I don't know what
Okay, so...
But business-wise, yes.
All right, so... we have a video with Greg Pilates, CAD designer, who they use Fusion 360. And we'll I gotta get it. I think that's on me, right?
I think so.
Yeah. I gotta post that. But he goes into what parametric design is with Fusion 360, where he can have a arts and crafts table.
Yeah.
In Fusion 360. And if a client comes in and says, that's great, but I need it to be this dimension by this dimension.
Yeah.
He just types in the overall dimensions and has it programmed that it adds spindles to the width.
Okay.
Once it goes this. The spindles are
Like you
these
have
variable
minimum, maximum spacing, and it just automatically figures it out. Cool.
If it reaches, if the length gets added to a certain point, it adds a stretcher, or it thickens the top, or it does. And he can just with it's Fusion 360, so probably 700 button clicks, change the entire design just based on these variables that he's programmed in. For a pro,
yes,
that's incredible.
Yes, you pretty much need to know how to do that.
Yeah.
What does Philip Morley use? Is that just SketchUp? Because he's like a master at his.
Yeah.
He looks like he does all of his design in SketchUp. And I don't know. I'm just not good enough to do that.
I've just started diving into Fusion 360, but I only do it for things that I'm CNCing.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody like Paul has it down. For me, it's more than I need. And I understand it, but if you're the type of person who is interested in adding a CNC to your workflow and you don't know SketchUp or Fusion 360, I don't think I'd bother to learn SketchUp. I think I'd jump right into the deep water.
Good stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because SketchUp just does not want to get along with that world.
Yeah. I use Adobe Illustrator, which is a drawing program, not to be confused with a CAD program, where I'm just in plan view, I can make a page as big as I want, and I draw full size. Like I actually draw 40 by 50 inch. If that's the piece I'm making, I draw every single element 100% to scale. So in that sense, I am doing full size drawings. You only get static views,
and
front view, side view. Yeah. You can't spin it around or anything like that. But I do use it in the way that I draw it. I just copy that, move it next to it, do any changes I want, move it again, do change and change. So I'll have these giant pages set up with maybe 20 full-size versions of the same thing in different iterations, different, widths, heights, leg sizes, drawer, door combinations, and all designed that way. And that's super fast and intuitive, but that's sort of after I already have, it's kind of like I already know, in essence, what I want to make.
Yeah.
And then that's tweaking details. And I think for any CAD program, you probably gotta know what you're making before you get to the computer and start punching in numbers.
Yeah.
So I think that's, to me, where this notion of designing in CAD, like for me, I'm not designing in Illustrator. It's an aid for me once to help me refine a design once I know what I want to make. But that's what, for me, sketchbooks, little ink on paper, that to me is still little teeny tiny chicken scratches. That's 99% of my design work happens there. And then once I have an idea of what I want to make, everything after that is sort of refining and capturing that design.
Yeah.
So still need a sketch pad, man. That's what I'm saying.
Well, and there's the one reason why we talked for 30 minutes without talking about CAD is because the question was from a guy who works on AutoCAD all day long, and he doesn't want to use AutoCAD. So he wanted to know ways of designing without drawing.
Yeah.
And that's why we went that far without talking about CAD. But do you ever, you don't ever use?
No. But I'm also the person who just said, I won't change my finish because I don't want to deal with the learning curve of changing a finish. The learning curve scares me on these things, and I'd rather spend that time cleaning my shop or getting started making something.
Yeah.
And so I'm just hand drawing, and I'll draw. The most I've ever done is like hand draw parts on a sheet of big paper, actual size. I've seen people, which I think is really cool too, who have whiteboards in their shop, and they just do the entire piece on the whiteboard while they're doing it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
Or like, I think it's a Philo thing. I think it's a traditional thing where you just get like a big old piece of plywood and
Oh,
you're
yeah.
just drawing the whole thing out.
Yeah,
on
North
Yeah.
Bennett, like they all start with a full-size drawing.
Yeah. You know what I just bought? I just remember because it was such a spur of the moment thing, and just boom, I
A
bought it.
water bottle with a magnetic top?
No, better.
Come
A
on.
set of ship's curves, like French curves,
Oh,
but
yeah.
bigger. 'Cause I
Oh.
saw-
Oh,
Yeah, I think it was Tim Coleman on a little Instagram post. He was designing a piece, and he had like a little ship's curve. So I don't have those.
I always thought the ship's curve was the flexible curve.
No,
that Michael Cullen
it's,
uses.
It's sort of like the really, really
flexible curve.
long, with the kind of like the teardrop, the bulbous on one
Yeah.
end. And the thing about those curves is that they're changing curves, which is a really, really, to me, like that's the heart of arts and crafts design. Is there's no regular curves, there's no arcs. It's all changing curves. And I was trying to explain this concept to people in terms of the secret of arts and crafts furniture, and someone said, "You mean like a ship's curve?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I did." And then I saw Tim Coleman using them. It's like, I need some. And they're totally cheap. You had like a set of 3 for like, I don't know, $12 or $13 on Amazon. I'm just waiting for them. Don't you love ordering things on Amazon just to know that something's in the mail?
There's the excitement of
That's
it.
pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
It's coming. Yeah.
I ordered
right.
some sanding belts and ship's curves. And I think I have another thing coming. So I had like 3 things that could be showing up in the mail at any given time. That's pretty nice. I recommend that. That's my
Sounds like
recommendation
Mike
of the day.
also has a shopping addiction.
Yeah, it does, right?
Okay.
All right. Anybody have any recommendations?
Oh, you're nixing my favorite question. Will you save it for me next time?
Did we nix a question?
I thought so. Maybe not. You give us 2 different versions.
Well, I send out the questions in advance and then. Oh, I did nix it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll save it for you next
All
time. All right.
I have a recommendation. There's a TED Talk called The Museum of 4 o'clock in the Morning. It's probably only 10 minutes. I highly, highly, highly recommend. I can't remember the guy's name. The Museum of 4 o'clock in the Morning
I'll link it.
TED Talk.
All right.
What is that? Everything people buy on Home Shopping Network at 4 a.m.?
No,
Oh, okay.
better.
Wow. Okay.
I have a recommendation. It's a recommendation and maybe a little bit of a shout out. It's to all of the new startup podcasts out there, and there's 2 in particular. There's Phil Morley and Ben Brunick and Ramon's.
Ramon Artful.
Yeah, the Woodworking podcast, I think it's called. I'll link to it now. I forgot the name, but also there's in my dabbling with lutherie and everything, I started listening to a violin makers podcast called Osmo. And I don't understand anything that they're talking about it, but they sound like they really know what they're talking about and they're passionate about it. And I like listening to passionate people. And it's like looking into a looking glass and you have no idea what's going on, but it's interesting. So check out Osmo.
I think I've thrown down many recommendations throughout this podcast.
Mike recommends listening to the stuff I already told you. All right, well, that's all for this episode of Shop Talk Live. If you have questions you'd like us to answer on the show, send them into shoptalk@taunton.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please click that thumbs up button. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks for listening. I swear I go into a different voice on the outro.
Yeah, you do.
It always sounds like I spliced it in.
So back to our earlier conversation about the nicknames, and then we started talking about Seinfeld. I'm just going to start calling you Pekovich.
Okay. I would like that.
I'm going
All
to
right.
perfect the...
Pekovich.
Yeah.
but
done.
you have to say it like Newman.
You know who doesn't
Oh,
know?
like Pekovich.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't like that.
Why?
Because I don't hate Mike.
Do you think Newman hated Jerry?
Yeah. Did you watch the show?
Yeah.
We're not still rolling, are we?
Are we doing a Yeti commercial right now?
All right.
It's a good water bottle.